Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. Let's inject some common sense into the Chad thing. Let's inject some common sense because, that's become the catch-all phrase or term for that guy who is super handsome, guy taller than average, and even some people will throw even the body in. This guy that got women going crazy and everything. And, of course, it's based on a white phenotype and everything. And, we'll jump into that in another video. But they'll say, the men of other races, the Tyrones and the Changs, the Enriques, or whatever. And, okay. But let's inject some common sense. Yeah, you got very few guys out there. I'm going to get into that few thing in a second. Like that who got just that. I mean, shoot, they might make millions as a model or something like that. Get a big following on social media. Hey, if they blessed that way, oh, great. But let's inject some common sense into it. How many of them actually exist on the planet? Now, there has not been some survey to survey these guys, but let's just be real. The stereotype, the archetype for those guys who fit into that category, we might be talking 1% or 1% on the planet. If there were to be some magical census taken of them, there might not be a million of them on the planet. So you talking, like I said, let 1% of 1%. Million men on the planet. All right, so that's the first one. There's not a lot of them. And yeah, you get some women, if they see a picture of them, they'll go crazy. You'll get a majority of women. They'll say, oh yeah, that guy's great. Okay, great. And they'll get attention and stuff. And if someone want to get multiple women, they'll definitely do with the women that they encounter. Okay. All of that's true. But you're talking very few. The reality is, if you're paying attention, there's plenty of men who ain't at that level who are still getting women happily. The women are happily being with them. The women are cooperating with them. The women are submitting to these guys who don't quite look like a Chad. For one simple reason. There's not enough to go around. Like I said, I just mentioned it. One simple reason. The average woman on the planet, or even in Western culture, since that's where it's promoted the most, let's just limit it to westernized cultures. A woman could probably go decades, maybe even her whole life, without running into one of these guys in person. The best she can get, she can look at them on social media, but you talking about everyday life. Despite it all, and even if they look at that guy, got a fantasy, maybe he's a model, they might put him on their wall, which it's a funny thing. With all these models, you don't see women putting them on the wall. And even then, speaking of that wall thing, these guys will have a shelf life. I'll use a great example like Justin Bieber. Women ain't, or anybody's not talking about him like they were. That is something to consider. They're not talking about them like they were. So these guys, they typically going to be in their early 20s and everything. So you already got very few early 20s. The rest of the male population at best will be maybe above average, and then below average. Which means you got men out there who they either got multiple women, or they consistently getting attractive women, and they still not reaching that Chad archetype because there's not enough to go around. It's just that simple. Just think about it. It's just that simple. Or even if you like throw the height in, let's throw some of the other stuff in. The height thing, only 14% of the population is over 6 feet. Male population globally is over 6 feet. In fact, the only place where the men consistently rate average over 6 feet is the Dinka tribe in Sudan. Which mysteriously, when people talk about average heights and stuff, people kind of forget them. Wonder why. So, other than them, the average guy that a woman has to deal with ain't gonna be over 6 feet. Now I know some people say, well, you get these women say he has to be that. Well, you get some less than desirable women who say they want a guy who make $1 million. I mean, they could say what they want. We talking realistic and everything, So the women are still going to deal with the men who are actually there. See, here's one thing about the women, and it's not even a subtle thing. Women are way more pragmatic. Women are way more, yes, they're emotional, but on a deep level, they're pragmatic. They're about getting their needs met. If they can get it met by a Chad, hey, a whole lot of them will like, yeah. But if they not meeting a Chad, or that's like a fantasy, and then even then, sometimes when a woman meets a very attractive man, sometimes they question his sexuality. Hey, this is the real world. This is the common sense thing. Now, why am I saying all this? Too many men are competing with a rare type of man. The Chad thing, they almost like a genetic mutation. That's not most of the men on the planet. But they compete. Now, they thinking, I don't look like this guy. I'm not tall like him. Okay. What you are is you. Focus on what you got. And if women are rejecting you, well, figure out why. And usually, most of the time, it's something you can control. And even then, I did a video this past Friday talking about you can control your look. And even your bone structure, you can control it. Body game. Because body game will even affect your face. And in fact, speaking of your face, you got control because you can get fat in your face. You work out, you can lose it there. Or if you're trying to bulk up, you can put weight on there. A lot of people don't think about that. You can control your haircut, your beard, you can control your teeth. And in fact, I'm going to tell you what, with women, a lot of times what they consider generically handsome is simply a man who just simply fixes up. Let me say that again. And if you're that, you can still get a woman. If you think it's seriously, for the women who specifically say they want handsome, a lot of times that's generic. A man can fix up. Good haircut, fix his teeth, make sure he don't got stuff all over his face. He can still be considered generically handsome. Looking like a Chad? No, but they're seriously, they almost like the polar opposite of somebody who has a disfigured face genetically. They just on another level, but it's very few of them in the world. And the thing is, why compete with someone, especially if you're in an environment where it might not have any or very, very, very few? You're not really competing with that. Because, like I said, with women, they pragmatic. They know it. Because they not just, they looking at your looks, but they also looking at your behavior. They also looking at other things. They looking at if you they get along with you emotionally. They looking at all that other stuff that you as a man have control over. And stuff. And see, you can't you worried about some unicorn, really. You worried about some unicorn. And I'll tell you what. Because I know some people, I don't believe you. Well, yeah, Rom, you ain't out here. And I'm like, well, yeah, actually I am. And I'm just in the real world. But talk to some women. Ask them. Like, if you actually know some women who going to be honest with you, shoot, they'll tell you that. Yeah, they think that guy look great. Where are they at? In fact, women will say that too. If you ask them honestly, they'll look at that guy who people hold up as a Chad and say, where they at? Where they at? I don't see guys like that. Which means if they don't see them, They obviously ain't around like that. So as a man, why you competing with that? The only real competition is with yourself. Just make yourself the best that you can, and then see which women are down for that program. That's it. And that's just common sense. Seriously, that's just common sense. Even, I don't care what angle you want to talk about. You talk about the height thing. Common sense. 86% of men are not going to be 6 feet. If you're not 6 feet and you meet some woman, you say, oh, you got to be 6 feet. Hey, just be like, okay. And she nasty about, well, you know, a woman for me she got to have a flat stomach. Or she need to have a butt this round. Common sense. Shit. And that's the thing. You gotta have some common sense out here. Don't worry about some fantasy or what you see online. Get off the computer. Get off the mobile phone. Go outside. Go to any public place where there's plenty of people. And then learn to read body language. You can pretty much tell if a woman is really into a man. If you learn how to read. If she all up on him, touching him and all of that, and that dude don't look like a Chad, there you go. If she all up on him and touching him and they pushing around a baby carriage or something, all men don't have to be that Chad. Because women, they pragmatic. Yeah, they could have it. See, that, just think about that. Because a lot of guys talking about female nature. And yeah, they got all this emotional stuff, sexual stuff. But bottom line, they actually way more pragmatic than men on a deep level. Way more pragmatic. They know what's there and it's like, oh, okay. And they ain't even a case of settling. They just being realistic. As a group. Of course, you're going to got the ones who want some fancy figure. But you'll find with those type of women, they don't have a lot of real friends because other women ain't going to want to deal with them. And I'm talking, when I talk about pragmatic, that's the majority of women on the planet. I don't care where you're listening to this from Zimbabwe, from Nigeria, from Sweden to Chile, to the Philippines, to Singapore. Women, you're not going, women are pragmatic. They know they can fantasize about a Chad, look at him, smile at his picture, but they know they ain't gonna meet that guy. So as a man, you don't worry about that guy. You don't worry about it and stuff. You just fix yourself up to be the best. You might be above average. Now, if we say above average, those are the guys who getting it like that. You look at any real players or men who really getting it, something about them is above average. And you got a lot of control over that. All right? But the Chad thing, that super good looking guy thing, women ain't tripping over that to the extent. That's like, that's the equivalent of men, wanting that like just perfectly built woman, perfectly pretty with a great personality. Oh yeah. Ain't impossible, but how often you gonna run into that? And there's more of them out there than it's probably like Chads. But still, how often you gonna run into that? So just inject some common sense into it, all right? So anyway, that's all I have for today. Get back with y'all later. Peace and blessings.